Okay, we are now at learning disabilities. Now, much of this is, of course, going to be on exam number 1. So it will be important for you to review this very carefully. And you might even want to view it, 2 or 3 times to get more of the detail out of it. So, learning disabilities. Well, etiology. And with the disabilities, we're going to cover 3 things: etiology, characteristics, and interventions. So for etiology, it's all a brain-based neurological etiological factor that comes into play. So no questions there. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the definition of learning disabilities. I have narrative definitions of learning disabilities. We usually go through them in class, and we may still yet do that, but they are so abstract. They have little that you can grab a hold of and say, hey, I know what learning disabilities. You should be able to explain to your parents after you view this video. You should be able to say, this is what learning disabilities is. Now, another thing I have to point out, as you may or may not recall, in your categories of special education, the only disability that has a word in front of it that says specific. There's not specific intellectual disabilities, specific autism, but there is specific learning disabilities. So you've got to be acquainted with these 6 types. There may be some other types, but these are the ones that you're going to run into 90+% of the time. Okay, so dyslexia. What is dyslexia? It's all about dealing with language. This is the leading type of learning disability, dealing with language, dealing with words and sentences and punctuation and capitalization and spelling. Oh my goodness, spelling is a big item. Something that we call syntax. That's putting the words together properly in a sentence. So it's a clear and sentence that really speaks to a person that they understand it. So it's all about language, and that's the leading type. Okay, dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, as you can see with the reference to calculation, it's about numbers. It's about calculations. It's about dealing with anything that's related to the computation through formulas or math facts or all of those sorts of things. So dyscalculia, and it all is about math and doing math work. And some of us, sometimes I think there's 2 types of people: those who do really well with math and those who struggle with math. And so that could be some of you. Dysgraphia. Now the DYS, which you're seeing repeated here, means not. So if you have dyslexia, you're not lexic. If you have dyscalculia, you're not able to calculate. If you have dysgraphia, you're not able to write very well. What dysgraphia is about: fine motor skills, handwriting, and if you've seen some of the doctors, sign documents, say, boy, every doctor's got dysgraphia. They can't even sign their name to where it's something that you can read. It's scribbly. So dysgraphia has to do with fine motor skills, and especially handwriting. And of course, we can get over that pretty quickly if we start teaching kids keyboard who have dysgraphia. Dysnomia, most people have never ever heard of. You don't want to get dysnomia just before taking an examination, because dysnomia is about recall and memory and being able to draw up from your brain information. So it's the ability to pull from your brain, the kinds of answers that you need. We all have a little bit of dysnomia, that maybe we don't remember somebody's name, or we don't remember a detail of an event or something of that nature. But a child who has learning disabilities and dysnomia, this happens to them, 100 times a day. They can't retrieve the information. The brain is like a computer, and you've got files in that brain, You should all have a file in your brain now that says Fry's class. So everything that you pick up and learn from Fry's class, you put in that folder in your brain, so that at some point, whether it's an exam or you're sitting in an IEP meeting, you can retrieve and pull that information up, and utilize it. So dysnomia is a disability of retrieval. The person with dysnomia, they've put the information in their brain somewhere, they just can't find it. Visual processing, that has nothing to do with visual acuity, has nothing to do with your ability to see. It's all about your brain processing information that you take in visually. Now, it may be a surprise to you, but you actually see with your brain. Your eyeballs are connected to your brain via the optic nerve. And so what you take in through your eyes, it goes to the brain, and then it's processed. And we know that we all process information differently. If 3 people see a crime committed, they put them in separate rooms and they interrogate them. And all 3 saw the same thing, but they process the information differently, and their stories, can differ from one to the other. Auditory processing, same thing. Your ears are connected to your brain via the auditory nerve. You hear with your brain. You take in information auditorily, and your brain processes it. Now, the brain is obviously a very complex organ, and how we process information that we receive through our ears is different. And some kids really struggle because they process sounds and information coming in auditorily very different from some others. Okay. This is Richard Lavoie, and he is a specialist in the field of learning disabilities, and he created a set of videos, DVDs, called Fat City. Now, it sounds kind of rude to come up with that name FAT, but it actually is an acronym, and it stands for what kids with learning disabilities experience every day in school: frustration, anxiety, and tension. They really struggle with learning, and it results in frustration, anxiety, and tension. So that's what Fat City is. We may look at some of those. There it is, something they experience every day. You might want to remember the name Richard Lavoie because he might be on the exam. Okay. Fairness. Oh, what is fairness? Now, we dichotomize between what is accommodations, which we get from the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that compared to modifications. Modifications come from IEPs. Now, in your class, when you've got students who are included in general education classes who have IEPs, who have disabilities, they may have modifications written into their IEP. Some people think they're accommodations, but they're really modifications. And you can modify the curriculum, you can modify the exam for the person with a disability, you can modify the homework assignments, all sorts of things. As long as it's written in the IEP, then that modification is going to happen. Well, what happens is that sometimes a general ed student is offended by the fact that these modifications are being provided to the child with a disability, but not to them. So you want to talk the very first day of school about fairness. Fairness does not mean every child is treated and gets the same. Maybe if you're dividing up a pizza, everybody gets the same amount. But when it comes to education, when it comes to the curriculum, the exams, and homework or whatever, so if you have a student approach you and say, hey, why do I have 20 math problems, as a homework assignment, and Mary over here only has 10 math problems as part of her homework assignment? Well, the answer is very clearly, remember fairness? Fairness does not mean that every child gets the same thing. Fairness means that every child gets what he or she needs. And because our needs are different, then what we're going to get is going to be different. That's the real definition of fairness. Some of the characteristics of students with learning disabilities. The need for friends and social relationships. These kids are so significantly isolated socially from the mainstream of students. You know, we sometimes call learning disabilities the hidden disability. They look just like anybody else, but they struggle, in some cases struggle mightily with learning. So a researcher took 10 students with learning disabilities into his office, and he said, if I give you a magic wand, and with that magic wand, you can eliminate all of your learning problems, they would be gone. You wouldn't be struggling with learning. Or you could use that magic wand to eliminate your social isolation, your social interpersonal relationships, and that you would then have friends. Which would you choose? Every one of those students said, I would use that magic wand to eliminate my social problems, my social isolation. Everybody wants and needs friends. Okay, as I mentioned, it's a hidden disability because they look so normal. I don't like to use that word sometimes. They look so regular, like you and I, but you know, you can't see inside the brain, and you can't see that what kind of disability they have, learning disability that they have. Kinetic melodies. Well, what that means is that we all have habituated, routinized tasks that we do every day. You know, by the time you leave the house, you haven't even thought about how you took your shower, how you washed your hair, how you brushed your teeth. Those are just routinized things. You do it the same way every time. You don't even think about it. Maybe getting dressed is the same way. It depends on the individual. Well, a lot of students with learning disabilities have problems with kinetic melodies. They don't establish these habituated routines. So every day when they go to brush their teeth, it's like they're doing it for the first time. Do I put the brush in my left hand? Do I put the brush in my right hand? Which hand do I hold the tube of toothpaste with? They're like they're doing it for the very first time. And that's an issue with many kids with learning disabilities. Revisualization. We revisualize a number of tasks in our mind, in our brain, before we do it. So if I ask you to spell America, you're going to revisualize that word in your mind's eye, and then you're going to spell it. Well, a lot of students with learning disabilities do not have this revisualization capability. It would be like you completing a 400-piece puzzle, and you revisualize it through the picture on the box, and you see what the completed puzzle looks like. But what if we gave you the pieces to the puzzle, we threw away the box, you didn't have the visual? With the visual, you might complete the puzzle in 2 days. Without the visual, it may take you 2 months because you don't have that revisualization available through the picture. That's how kids with learning disabilities, with this revisualization issue, that's how they struggle. They can't revisualize things in their mind's eye. Social contracts. Boy, I love this one. This is a really, really big one because in society, we have huge numbers of unwritten social contracts. If you go to the Starbucks, you know, to buy your drink, and there's a line, you're going to get to the end of the line. It's not written anywhere that you're going to get to the end of the line, but you know that that's an unwritten rule. You're not going to go to the front of the line. You're going to go to the end of the line. And when you're in the line, now you've got a social contract with that person behind you. You'll never meet these people again. You've never seen them before, but you have a social contract with them, even though you're total strangers. So what's your social contract with the person behind you? You move up as the line moves up, and you move up. You don't just stand there. You move up. And because there's now more people behind you, you also have a social contract to look up at the menu and decide what you're going to order. You don't wait till you get to the counter to order your drink or your food at a fast food restaurant. You start making that decision well before you get to the cashier. And the other thing that really irritates me when I'm standing in line is get your money ready. You know, I know that some women carry purses the size of a suitcase. And where's the money? It's always at the bottom of the purse and they can't find it. So decide what you're going to order. Get your money ready before you get up to the counter, to the cashier. Another thing that irritates me, because sometimes I know they're doing it, fiddling with the phone, is we're at a stoplight. We're sitting there patiently. The light turns green, and the car in front of you doesn't move. Wow, that's an irritation to me. I have no patience, I guess, because I start honking right away. Move. You've got a social contract with me to get that automobile moving so that we can all, complete our activities. So those are social contracts. There's lots of them out there. So, okay, so there's a couple things here about distractibility and attention span. I think looks like we lost part of our slide there. But attention span has to, the child pays attention to nothing. They have this short attention span, they pay attention to nothing. Good picture that Rachel has put in here, the young man down below looking, away when the teacher's teaching. Distractibility, the child pays attention to everything. And, that's a problem as well. So we sometimes think that attention span and distractibility are one and the same, but they're not. Look at the difference between them. Attention span, the child pays attention to nothing. Distractibility, the child pays attention to everything. Remedial instruction. This is an intervention that we provide to our students with learning disabilities. And that's about bringing the students' skills up to or close to grade level. It's remediating the difficulties and bringing their grade level functioning up. Compensatory education, on the other hand, is taking the material and bringing it down to the level of the child's functioning. So you can instead of after reading a grade level 5th grade reader, you put them down in a 3rd grade reader. So that's compensatory instruction. Very easy to remember, I'm sure. Both of these styles are good. There's not one is better than the other. And maybe they need both. You've got remedial in some areas where you're bringing skills up, compensatory where you're taking the material and bringing it down to the level of the student. Okay, so that's learning disabilities in a nutshell. I hope again that you'll take a look at this and review it more than once so you can really become familiar with it. We will be discussing it in class, not necessarily everything that's available here on this video. Thank you.